Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Adversity Podcast. That feels really weird to say for a number of reasons, but mainly because I've been toying with the idea of doing a podcast for a long time, and it feels really nice to say that I'm finally doing it. It feels nice for those words to finally come out of my mouth. Now, before we begin, I should probably tell everyone about myself. My name is Nick Barden. I cover the Toronto Marlies, which is a professional hockey team in Toronto, if you don't know already. I cover them for the Nation Network, the Leafs Nation, and what I do is write stories, weekly updates about the team, how they're doing. I also interview the players and write in-depth stories on them, whether it's one-on-ones and an in-depth story on that, or just Q&As. I do that, and those are pretty interesting too. But yeah, I go to every practice mostly and every game, and I talk to the players. I do stories on them. And yeah, that's my day job, and I guess this is my night job. I really don't know where I'm going with it, but really there's a lot that has gone into starting this podcast. There's a lot that I've found out about myself trying to start this podcast. And there's just everything that this podcast is about is from what I've learned in the last maybe 1 to maybe even 3 years. A lot of it has been covering a professional hockey team. I do want to take it all the way back for where it is to where it did start. And that is back in October of 2021. I interviewed 2 hockey players who were on the Marlies at the time, Curtis Gabriel and Josh Hosang. Now, I talked to those 2 specifically about mental health. At the time, and even right now, like I'm going through just little instances of mental health issues, mental health problems. Everyone goes through them. But when I talk to them about their specific problems and just hearing about how they've navigated throughout their life and through their mental struggles and how they've overcome them, I really found something in that. And when I started doing those interviews, I really found out a lot about them and about myself. And I really wanted to do more of those stories in the future. I thought at that moment in time, I found my calling. I found everything that I wanted to do with my life. I thought that was it. And as the future progressed, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. You can't always do mental health stories on people who aren't really wanting to do mental health or be asked about mental health things in general. So that was really hard. I never really wanted to go up to a player on the Marlies or anything like that and really try and pry about their mental struggles and how they've overcome them, or maybe what is going on in their life right now that's really pushing them maybe to the boundaries or to the brink mentally. I never wanted to do that, and that never was something that I don't think the players would want either. So as I thought I found the calling, which was mental health stories, at the same time, I also thought, okay, this isn't the way to go. So, just go through the season and just interview players and, do cool stories on them and them getting to the NHL, because the Toronto Marlies are the AHL affiliate of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So at that moment, there were a few players that were getting their NHL opportunities, NHL debuts. And that's another cool part of covering the Toronto Marlies, is you get to see guys go and live out their dream, something they've been working for since they were young, to get to the NHL. And that's, out of all of the things that I enjoy doing with the Toronto Marlies and covering them, that's probably the best. I really, really like seeing guys, work really, really hard. As I am at practice a lot, I see how hard they work. And when you see them do that much, it really, I don't know if I develop a sense of fondness, or I don't know if even that's the right word, but you see them work and you just understand how hard they've worked to get there. And when you see them get to the NHL, you just can't help but cheer for them. So that's what I did. And, as the season went on, as many of you might know if you're a reporter or someone who works in the hockey industry, like as the season goes on, you start to really feel the grind catching up to you. You start to develop burnout. And as you get through a season, like for me, I am one of the only people that covers the Toronto Marlies. There's Todd Crocker, shout out to him. He's their play-by-play commentator. There's also Danielle Bain, who is there for every game. Shout out to her too. She's at every game. She's their rinkside reporter, rinkside host. And then there's Joshua Cloak. Shout out to him as well. He's usually at a lot of the practices, or maybe 50-50 practices, I'd say, throughout the season. Maybe a little bit less, but he's also there. So, you go through a season, and compared to the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's not a lot of media. So it's like 3 versus like 10 or 15. So usually at practices, it's usually 2 people. And, going to every practice, going to almost every game that's at home, pretty much every game at home and none away, you start to run out of questions. It's not because maybe I'm bad at it, I'd say. I think it's just, you go through a season and you're asking guys, where do you think you're doing right now that's really good? Or, what do you think you can improve on? And there are some players like Bobby McMahon, for example, who is a guy who's bounced up and down between the AHL and NHL this season. He's a really good story. He came out of college at 26 years old. He's finally making his NHL debut, but he's one guy where he's played really well in the last few games, and you get him once, you get him twice, and as much as you want to ask him about how he's doing and how good he's doing, how good he's doing. What he's feeling like because you've already talked to him twice, 3 or 4 times in the last maybe month or so. So where I'm trying to get at here is, as you go throughout a season, you get the burnout, you start to feel it. And it's really difficult to put into perspective what I mean by this, but like I'm the type of person who enjoys to have fun. That's really what I'm about. I want to have fun. I want to have entertaining things that I can put out to people to show them things. So, after games, sometimes they lose and they're not happy, and for good reason they're not happy. They do this as their job. They lose, they're upset. And, as a reporter, sometimes it's really good to have those situations because you're not always going to have those winning situations. But at the same time, it is difficult to, have that serious part of it for me because just, again, I'm the type of person who loves to joke around, who loves, being happy, who loves all of that stuff. And again, it's going to happen in a season where there's going to be tough routes of adversity. That's what this podcast is called. But there's going to be those tough bouts and for the players. And it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be easy for me. But that's one of the things that, as the season got closer and closer to ending, I was really struggling with the fact of enjoyment, maybe is the right word. I feel like there could be another word, but enjoyment, fulfillment might be another great word to use. But like it was just so difficult to keep going and keep chugging along when, the burnout sets in. And when the burnout sets in, this was like the first time I ever felt burnt out in a season. I've covered the Toronto Marlies since February of 2021. So it's been a little bit, but this is the first time I really felt burnout. And I didn't know whether it was because I was actually burning out or it was the fact that I wasn't enjoying the game of hockey anymore. And when the season was done, I really sat with that for a while. I really tried to figure out, what is my purpose here? Am I really enjoying this? Or is it really just because I'm just burnt out and I've, been through a whole season? So, throughout the summer, I played with that idea in my head and I thought, is hockey really for me? Is being a reporter really for me? And that's how I sort of stumbled upon this podcast idea. It really... it started then. It started for a long time before that, but this is where it really, came into my head where I was like, okay, I'm really going to do this. Just because, it's something that I've really wanted to do for a while. I've done YouTube for a very long time. I've done it ever since I can really remember. I before even 2010, I found a video a few years ago. It's a little off topic, but we're gonna go with it. Found a video a few years ago of me, and I was like 10, maybe 12, and I was talking about how I wanted to be a YouTuber. It never went up on YouTube, but yeah, that was really, when I saw that, seeing it maybe 10 or 12 years later, it just, it really shined a light on how long I've been wanting to do this. But YouTube has been a big thing for me. I've wanted to do it again for a long, long time. I started in 2016 an official YouTube page where I recorded things. I took a camera that my sister had, a little digital camera. It was like this big. And I recorded FIFA videos. And eventually I worked my way up to getting a camera, the one that I'm actually recording on right now. And yeah, it's went to that, and I ended up, I stopped doing FIFA videos after a little bit just because I needed to get a real job. And, FIFA, it was dying. It's not really my favorite game. It was when, you could open packs and get players for cheap amounts of money. But, hashtag inflation, everything went up. But I stopped doing that. And when I went into school, I started doing YouTube again. I really found another part of me that wanted to do it again. And I started reacting to Toronto Maple Leafs games. And I sort of followed in the footsteps of Steve Dangle. I really, throughout my time doing it, felt like I was copying him. And a lot of people told me, no, you're not. But still deep down, I felt like I was. And eventually I stopped doing that. And as I shifted into covering the Toronto Marlies in February of 2021, I said to myself, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to make YouTube videos on the Toronto Marlies, the players, and, that's my niche, and I'm going to fill that niche. And again, I hit that point, as the season ended, and it was difficult for me because that was another thing, was like, I really enjoyed having a YouTube channel, but at the same time, I just thought to myself, I'm not enjoying it. So, when I started feeling that burnout towards YouTube, I really thought to myself, what am I doing here? Is it something that I'm really enjoying, or is this, something I'm falling out of love with? And when I thought about the podcast idea, like I said before, that really sparked an interest for me, just in the sense of, I've wanted to do something, not in the hockey space specifically, but, in the general space. When I interviewed Josh Hosang, when I interviewed Curtis Gabriel, they gave me real stories about just how they went through things in their life. And, I really like that. And I don't want to be just grounded to the game of hockey. I want to do this in a atmosphere where I can pull maybe a hockey player. Maybe I could pull an actor, an actress, or a musician, or a YouTuber, or just a content creator in general, and just ask them how they got to the point that they did in their life. And that's where this podcast really came to life in my brain. It was at a moment in time, too, when I was looking for something, and that something was purpose. That sort of, again, realigns with everything else I was thinking. I didn't feel purpose. As much as I do enjoy reporting, as much as I do enjoy content creation, I wasn't getting that purpose fully filled in my temperature gauge or brain gauge. I just wasn't feeling enough purpose. And, I'm the type of person who, when they do things that they enjoy, when I do things that I enjoy, I work really hard at it, and I do it to the best of my abilities. And that's something I've always done with YouTube. I've always wanted to be a YouTuber. I've always wanted to put 110% of my effort into YouTube. So, when I stopped doing it in FIFA, I thought the same thing. When I stopped doing it for hockey, I started feeling the same thing. I was like, am I ever going to do this? And this podcast really fills all of those little needs in my brain, I guess. There's more needs that I have. I have friends. I haven't really, though, in my life had, friends where I could sit and really talk just anything about. That's something that I've never really had in my life, where I can, go out with people, enjoy a night out. For me, that has not been a thing, and I'm an introvert, so I don't really go out to begin with. But, this podcast, I want to have somebody on every week, so this could be the thing that helps me branch out in that aspect too. I don't want to be a person who sits inside all day, who doesn't talk to people, who's afraid to talk to people. So this podcast, I'm hoping as well, can push me in a new direction too. So yeah, when you put everything together, you put interviewing people, whether it be in sports, entertainment, or wherever type of field, when you put that together with, meeting cool people and all of that stuff, you find something that's really cool. And you also have content creation in that as well. I love creating content. I love seeing myself grow in certain ways. And, this is just another way to do that. So this podcast, again, is going to help me fill the needs that I have in myself. And, hopefully the goal is to help the needs of other people too, or just entertain people. One of the things, as much as this is going to be called the Adversity Podcast, this isn't something where, it's always going to be serious. I don't want it to be like that. It's not going to be a place where, I'm going to talk about adversity. I'm going to talk about, the hard times that people have had to go through to get to where they are. But at the same time, I want it to be a place where, you can joke around, as people say, shoot the shit. And hopefully, we can do that. I want to entertain. I also want people to be able to learn from others. As a lot of people have different dreams in their life. And I'm a big believer that you can do anything you want in life. You just have to work at it. And, say you want to be a musician. I want to bring a musician on and, just explain how it works, the flow of it, and, how they got through maybe a time where they felt they didn't think they could be a musician anymore. So hopefully I can find a lot of that in these podcasts, and hopefully you, whoever's watching, can find a lot of that too. The last thing I will say, though, is, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey for me. It's going to be a journey for other people. And I said this in a podcast recording that I did, a week ago. It was something that I came up with. It wasn't really something that I came up with, but it technically was. It's sort of like a saying. It's like, the person creates the journey, and also at the same time, the journey creates the person. So that's something I'm going to roll with. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket and maybe say it after every episode, but that's another thing. It's a journey through life. You're not always going to find the thing you enjoy right off the bat, the thing that you're good at right off the bat, the thing that, gets you to where you are in life right off the bat. It takes work. It takes a lot of, I don't know if self-reflection is the right word, because I never use that sort of phrase, but it is that, when you do things in life, you figure things out. And if you don't do things in life, you don't figure things out. So this is me doing something in life, and this is me trying something new. So I hope, if you did make it this far, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of me just, rambling on about things. I did forget to mention my girlfriend Asia, who is the best friend in my life. We've been together for 5 years. She's pushed me a lot. She's been really great and amazing and everything else. And she's the person that I confide with. And, as much as is great to have one friend, I'd love to have many more. So if you're here, you don't have any friends, welcome. It's me. I'm in that same boat. And let's be friends together. Let's enjoy this thing. Let's have a lot of fun with it. And hopefully it goes somewhere. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the podcast, if you want to follow the socials, it's The Adversity Pod on every platform, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And then The Adversity Podcast, of course, on YouTube if you're watching this on video. And if you're not watching it on video, you have not seen my dog Finn crying for me to pet him for the last 20 minutes or however so long I've been talking. So again, thank you so much for listening. It's going to be a weekly thing, so there'll be an episode next week, the week after that, and so forth until I want to go on vacation. I haven't been on a vacation in a long time, but we're not going to talk about that because that's rambling on. But thank you so much. And yeah, hope to see you in the next episode. The person creates the journey creates the person. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you in episode number 2.